Sure. We recently announced a share class self-disclosure, self-reporting initiative. I'm not sure I used the right words there. Self-reporting initiative.
I wrote it down because I can't remember.
But basically says, look, we've brought a handful of cases in this space, as I think folks know, and OC's done exams and issued risk alerts and the like in this space, but we continue to see problems with failure to disclose conflicts of interest associated with advisors putting clients in higher fee share classes when lower or no fee share class options are available. And so we try to really just think practically about what's something broader we can do in this space that gets closer towards solving this problem and putting money back in the pockets of investors, but also has, also encourages people to come forward and deal with this problem. And so we worked through, what are the components of what a self-reporting program in this space could look like, and ultimately came up with specific terms that we would recommend for anyone who self-reports by, I think it's June 12th. For any firm that self-reports by that date, you get very specific terms, and I think probably the most meaningful is, from our perspective, disgorgement remediation to clients. From firm's perspective, presumably it's the fact that we would recommend no penalty to the commission. We have had penalties in all of the cases we brought, so it is a departure. But that's fundamentally what the program is.
I mean, this is a very specific initiative, and to me at least, I have a view on the pros and cons. I'm not gonna share it, but I'm curious about your view. And then generally, outside of this initiative, what do you think about self-reporting in general?
So I think it's a great question. I think self-reporting in general is a really difficult issue, and I think part of it, apart from this initiative, really frankly even including this initiative, but most primarily apart from this initiative, I think for advisors, the biggest, for any market participant, the issue has been that it's not always clear what the benefits of doing it really are, right? It's not clear. There's some cooperation guidance that the commission, gave out for public companies that report, and then there's even, the cooperation initiative to have individual witnesses and the benefits they could get. But there's a huge amount of uncertainty, and it's also sort of a lack of transparency into the process. I don't mean that in a nefarious way, but since you never know what you get out, it's really risky to go in and buy yourself a problem, and so it's a risk handicapping. And I actually applaud the disclosure initiative, because at least it's holding out a tangible carrot, which is not only that you're not paying a penalty, but there's an express threat that if we find you and you don't self-report, you'll have likely an even larger penalty. The hard part for me to advise clients now, and I do get a fair amount of questions as you do on what they should do about the initiative, it's sort of the unknowns. So as of now, you get sued, you have a 2062 and a 207, that the commission is calculating, or at least has to bless your disgorgement theory, that they leave open the opportunity of looking at related or maybe even unrelated conduct based on the nature of your self-report. You have the risk of individual liability, and there are potentially civil penalties associated with both of those issues, both individual liability and with ancillary conduct. And so I think to the degree that there is reasonable certainty of some of these issues, and I think the willingness of the division to engage on how this works is really kind of is very valuable. I think a lot of people are sort of tentatively filling each other out. I suspect it will be a successful initiative. It's just not for everyone.
It's hard for me to answer the question about what is the risk. I think people should take the program at face value. It's not intended to be, some sort of program that gets a bunch of firms to come in and then, we're going to sift around in their closet and look for other problems, right? That's not to say if someone comes to us and has a whole host of other problems, we wouldn't look at it. And that's kind of what we're trying to communicate there. I think it's, look, if firms have appropriate disclosure in this space and therefore they make the determination that they don't need to self-report, might something come down the road? It's just sort of impossible to say. Like I said, I take the program sort of at face value. It is what we say it is, and it's intended to accomplish the goals. we've said we want to accomplish. The one other thing I think I'll address, and I don't think it was in your question, but was the point Rob made about self-reporting, and I hear that. I think it is an unknown. You don't know what you're getting. I sat where Rob sits. I've made those calculations. I will say that is an area that Steve, my co-director, and I are very focused on. We both understand kind of the calculation that firms are making, and we appreciate it and the difficulty, and we'll never be able to erase that difficulty. But what we are focused on are ways to communicate to the marketplace what you are getting for cooperation. You will see in our more recent orders, we are trying to be much more detailed, trying to do two things. One, give entities that truly cooperate tangible benefits, and we're trying to communicate to the marketplace what those benefits are.